Hey folks, David Stewart here. Time for Daily Trending. June 14th, 2020. It is my birthday, so there is going to be a link to some free stuff that's available for the next day. All 8 of my fantasy novels, or all of them in the Eternal Dream series, you can grab for free for the next day in ebook format, whatever format you want, EPUB or PDF or whatever. And the Memories Adrift album is also optionally free, at least on Bandcamp, so you can check that out. Let's hop into the trending topics. We're going to skip Insecure HBO because I don't have any commentary on that. No, so the first one is Justice for Toyin. That's also number 3. Oluwatoyin Salau. This is a woman who her body was found. And her body was found very recently after she made a number of tweets saying that somebody had molested her, that was giving her a ride to church or something. So, of course, the narrative is immediately this is weaved into the broader chaos narrative here. And the narrative is that somehow her reporting a sexual assault resulted in her being killed, that those two things are connected, and maybe the person who did that killed her. Now, that is a possibility. That is certainly could be the case, but whenever you have something emerging that's so recent, you really don't know what's going on. If there's something unrelated, we really don't know what's going on other than these two things have been connected on Twitter, and they serve the greater narrative. So the truth is that unfortunately, virtually nobody in the greater normie world is going to remember Toyin. No one is going to remember her. Whether she was good or bad, they won't remember her. What they will remember is a general sense of agitation involved with the times that are related to, well, some protesters were killed. And that's really the narrative that these people are trying to force this into, even though this probably has nothing to do with her being a Black Lives Matter protester. That is going to be part of the broader narrative. And so people are going to remember that. They're going to remember that somebody somewhere was killed for being a Black Lives Matter protester, and they won't really have ever followed up with the facts. I mentioned the other day, if you want to cure yourself of reading newspapers, read old newspapers for a month. Read them even 1 week old. You find that actually most of the news that is reported is false, because they're reporting the information, even if they're accurate, correct journalism, quote, good journalism. They're reporting the facts as they know them when it's reported, and as more things emerge and things are recontextualized, then the reality ends up being different than the initial report. That's what almost always happens. So most news ends up being false, and you're better off reading a summation of historical events after the fact. A large, more scholarly article that puts all of the things into context so you can actually know what happened. The reality is when something very shocking and bad happens, you're not going to have even a small portion of the facts initially. That's what we got here. So, unfortunately, most people are not going to remember her, but they are going to remember the agitation, and this is the way this works. People forget about the names, they forget about the people. What they remember is the feelings that are associated with it, and that's what the fake news media uses to provoke agitation, get people scared, make them click more stories. So if you pay attention to anything, pay attention to the patterns. I pay attention to the patterns, and that will give you somewhat of an inoculation there. And number 4 is the same as number 1, so we're skipping that. Long Gone Summer. Todd McFarlane paid an inflation-adjusted total of $5.8 million for Mark McGwire's numbers 67, 68, 69, and 70th home run balls. Sammy Sosa's number 61 and 66, and Barry Bonds' 73. So these were record-breaking home runs. Today, he'd be hard-pressed to get $1 million total for these 7 balls. So I think Eric Larson had the best reply here, which is that this stunt ended up establishing a relationship which had Todd making toys of ball players for over a decade. It also helped make Spawn a household name, which led to cartoons and a movie. Todd made out just fine. Todd has millions upon millions of dollars. He's doing great. And the other thing is that whenever somebody has this perspective, and he's not wrong, if he'd be lucky to get $1 million for the baseballs, if he's not wrong, he's not wrong. But people generally don't buy sports memorabilia of this high a price just because they're looking to somehow invest, right? Like they're not looking to recover their value later at a sale or to tie up their cash in some kind of asset which they can convert to cash later on. Rather, I think Todd was buying those because he wanted to own a piece of history because he cared about it. Even if Major League Baseball loses a significant amount of popularity, those baseballs might really be something important to him. That's why a lot of people buy these very expensive things. So if you buy an old guitar that belonged to Jimi Hendrix for $150,000 or something, or a million, who knows how much one of those guitars would fetch. Is it because you're trying to convert that into money later? You know, if you wait long enough, people won't even really remember who Jimi Hendrix was, or there'd be so few people that care, you're not going to get a ton of money for it. You know, you buy it because it's special. It's a piece of music history. It means something. It means something to you. That's why a lot of collectors pay these high prices for these things. It's not an investment. And so to frame it as an investment is kind of missing the point, I think. Anyway, that was part of Long Gone Summer, and I don't know what else was on there, but I thought I'd comment on that because it's a point to make a point. If you're going to collect something, it's because you like it, not because you're looking to convert it for value. Same thing with comic collecting. A lot of people start buying comics thinking that their collection is worth some amount of money, even though they really have no intent on ever selling the books. And if you want to own the books so that you own them and can read them, who cares? Who cares if they go down or up in value? Who cares what their value is? The value only matters if you care about converting it back to cash in some future date, if you're trying to make an investment out of it. And that, I think, is something that for most collectors is just an unwise way to approach whatever activity. It's better to buy things because you like them and you enjoy having the collection. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, by the way. So let's see here. What else is interesting here? I don't know. 5SOS got accused of sexual assault. So there you go. I don't know if there's anything else really to say about it. A popular Bollywood actor committed suicide, Sushant Singh Rajput, and a lot of people are talking about that. So that's, I guess, kind of important. That one has definitely come into my peripheral. I'm going to skip WWE stuff because that stuff, I don't really have anything to say about any of that. Noam Chomsky is trending for some reason. Now, I have an interesting anecdote here. I was talking about Noam Chomsky to my wife or something, and she's like, Noam Chomsky, the linguist. I was like, yes. And she's like, this guy is like a political guy? And I'm like, oh yeah. And she's like, oh. She's like, I've read these things. You know, she had to learn a bunch of, you know, his language theories. I think one of his is like universal grammar or something like that. And so she had to learn these as part of her education as a speech pathologist. And so she had no idea Noam Chomsky was political at all. And I remember Thomas Sowell making a point about Noam Chomsky and others, which is that, you know, linguists are not really famous. But if you step outside of your realm of expertise and you know, become a political scientist, if you will, for at least one direction, he's kind of a leftist anarchist is what people describe him as. Like he's really like a stateless communist, like communism as even as Marx described it, as, you know, communism, the end state of communism would be like a stateless society anyway. But anyway, I digress. The point is that most people know Noam Chomsky because of the things he says, which are political, but he's a linguist and was a scholar in that field, and people that are in that field don't really necessarily know him as a political figure. So Tom Sowell made this point that people step outside their realm of expertise because it gives them some amount of fame and notoriety and approval, because their specific realm of expertise might be quite narrow, whereas somebody who's famous for, like, you know, hitting home runs doesn't really feel the need to do that. They're famous for hitting home runs, you know. Just a interesting little point I thought I'd talk about with him. And I don't know what else to say here. Oh, this made me laugh. Barbra Streisand gifted George Floyd's daughter shares in Disney. So I'm sure that's going to help her, rather than, she could have sold those shares and given her money. So why not give her money? Why give her shares in a giant multinational corporation that has had like its worst quarter on record? Just had its worst quarter on record. Is she trying to like get rid of her Disney stock? It's like, it's easier to gift the Disney stock than to sell it and try to deal with the taxes involved from selling the stock at a loss. Is that what it is? It's such a weird thing. And it's such a weird thing that it makes a headline. It's like, he gifted her stock. It's like, well, I mean, stock is not money. She'd have to like talk to a stockbroker to convert that to money. It's like, oh, well, she holds on to the Disney stock and it'll be super valuable. It's like, maybe, or maybe not. I think Disney will weather this entire situation because they have huge amounts of assets. They can leverage tons of debt to make it through any kind of hard spots to get back to normal operations. But their primary things they do are theme parks and entertainment, and both of those are kind of right now. So kind of a weird thing to give someone is stock. Kind of a strange thing. But I'm guessing it would be like, it's the equivalent of like you could have set up a trust fund for her, but instead it's going to just be some stock. Anyway, that's about it for today. Thanks so much for watching. You can grab those free books down below, or you just head to the web address, which is going to be books.bookfunnel.com/HobbitonBirthday, and you should be able to grab 8 free fantasy novels, including Tyrant's Gala, which isn't even out yet. That doesn't even come out till Tuesday. But you can order the physical copy right now if you want a physical copy of the book. So thanks so much, and I'll see you guys next time.